Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel ITGUYAKay. In this tutorial, we will learn how to install and configure DNS in Red Hat CentOS 8 machine. First of all, we will see a brief introduction about DNS. A DNS is responsible for resolving name into IP address and vice versa for any computer resource in a network. If you want to learn more about DNS, then here is a site name howdns.works which will explain you about DNS and its functionality in a very unique way. Next, this is the scenario which we use to set up our DNS in a lab environment. We will use three machines. First one will be our primary or master DNS server. Second one will be secondary or slave DNS server. And the third one will be the host or client machine. To install DNS, we need a domain name that will be defined the boundary for our domain. Here I am using ITGUYAKay.local as my domain name. You are free to use any other domain name for your DNS server, but make sure that your DNS should be unique and should not have an existence in real world if you are making it public. Next is IP address and hostname scheme. This is the IP and hostname scheme we will use in our lab test. You are free to use any hostname and IP address scheme as per your requirement. But for this scenario, I am using the mentioned hostname and IP addresses for our primary, secondary, and client machines. Next, there are some prerequisites that we need to check before follow this tutorial. First is that you should have 3 computer machines or virtual machines with Red Hat CentOS 8 or 7 operating system. Second, your all machines should be in same network, and you should have an internet connection in all your machines, and your all machines should be configured with root or sudo users. That's all you need. Now let's start configure our DNS. For this tutorial, I have write down all the required commands in a file so there will no chance of typing mistakes and we can save our time. These are the 3 machines which we use for our this tutorial, and all machines are configured with CentOS 8 operating system. So we will start our first machine which we will configure as our primary DNS server. So let's start this. First, check the hostname and IP address. So as you can see that this is the IP address and hostname I'm getting. I have configured my VirtualBox with port forwarding rule so I can access my virtual machines from my host computer. Now log in to virtual machine from host machine via SSH connection. Verify the machine with OS version and IP address. Now we can start our tutorial to configure the DNS primary server. First of all, set the hostname for our primary DNS server. Now install required packages to configure DNS primary server. Bind and bind utils what we need, which I have already installed for our this tutorial. Just verifying with this command if the packages are installed or not. Next, we have to configure our primary DNS machine with the static IP because DNS works on static IP address. For this, first create the backup of your current network configuration file and then edit the network configuration file with any text editor. Go to insert mode and add the static IP address as shown in the screen. For primary server, IP address will be 10.0.2.5. Once configuration done, save and exit. Now restart your network services with the given command. Because IP address has been changed, I have to reopen the SSH session again. verify the IP address. Now we are ready for main DNS configuration. You can find the main configuration file under /etc/named.conf. Before edit, just create a copy of default file as backup. Then open the file. Here I am copying the configuration from another file. We will talk about changes we made in this file later. Under the option statement, the listen on option define the port 53 and IP address 10.0.2.5 on which our primary DNS server will receive queries. In second line, we are just excluding the IP version 4 network. You can use hash sign to skip any line or element. Then in allow query element, you have to add the IP addresses or network to allow who are to make query to our DNS server. We add here trusted, which is an ACL that we created in same file. Allow transfer option is used to transfer our queries to secondary DNS before it resolved by our primary DNS. Other options remain unchanged. Go below in named.conf file. Here we created ACL named trusted, which we have defined in allow query element. Here we have defined IP addresses who are allowed to query our DNS. Here we have created zone statement for primary DNS. This one is forward zone with name ITGUYAKAY.local, and this one is reverse zone statement with the reversely defined network part of our IP address. Note that type is defined as master and the path is defined under /var/named/zone directory, which is the default path for named services. In that directory, we have to create our zone configuration file with given name, save file and exit. Now next, we have to create zone directory in which we will put our zone configuration files. Now create forward zone configuration file. I have write down forward zone configuration in separate file, copying that to our forward zone configuration file. First line contains the time to live value in seconds is the default time for zone's resource record till valid. Second line is the start of authority where ns1.itguyakay.local server has the authority to start this domain, and admin.itguyakay.local is the email to contact for this domain. Third line contains the serial number directive is a numeric value incremented every time the zone file is altered to indicate it is the time for named to reload the zone. Fourth line contains the refresh time numeric value slave servers use to determine how long to wait before asking the master server if any changes have been made to zone. Fifth line contains the retry time numeric value that the slave server used to determine how long to wait before making another refresh request if the primary server does not respond. Sixth line contains the expire time numeric value that the slave server used to determine how long to wait before declaring the domain is expired and will no longer respond to queries made for that domain namespaces. Seventh line contains the cache TTL time that the other name servers can cache the zone's information. Next, we have defined our authoritative name servers. Below it, we define the A records for our primary or secondary name servers. Below it, we define the A records for our primary and secondary name servers. And in last, we define the other machines mapped with the A records IP address of given network. Save this file and exit. Now we have to create the reverse zone configuration file. Paste the appropriate configuration parameters in it. The SOA directive values are the same as we saw earlier. Name server records are also same. Now come to pointer records value. Here we mapped host part of IP addresses with all the three machines fully qualified domain name. Save the file and exit. As configuration part is done, now we have to check our configuration for any syntax errors. Run this command. If you are not getting any error, then our configuration is okay. Next, we have to verify our Jones configuration file for any syntax error. Run this command to check the forward zone file. If showing OK, then configuration is OK. Run this command to check the reverse zone file. Now we are ready to start and enable our named services. Then enable the port number for DNS servers. This is important because by default all services and port numbers are blocked by firewall for input. Now put the DNS servers entries in network configuration file. Save and exit. Now restart your network interface. And verify your machine that your DNS server is allowed to resolve the queries. For time being, I am shutting down it. Starting secondary DNS server machine. In this machine, some basic configuration I have already performed like hostname and static IP configuration, so we can save our time for this tutorial. Just log in to my NS2 machine. You can see that IP address is already configured and hostname has been set it up. But if you need to perform these things, just repeat these three steps. Let's check first our static IP configuration. As you can see, I have defined the IP address netmask gateway DNS1 and DNS2 and the domain in the network file. Make on boot value yes. Now backup named.conf file with move command. Then create a new named.conf file and put the appropriate configuration in that file. Let's understand the configuration parameters. The listen on option defines the port 53 and IP address 10.0.2.6 on which our secondary DNS server will receive queries. IP version 6 is skipped for this tutorial. Allow query option defines the machine who are allowed to make query to DNS server. Allow transfer option is defined as none, so received queries will not be forwarded to any another DNS server. Now come below. Here we defined our ACL statement. You can add more IP address if you want. And this is the zone we defined, where type is slave, file path is this, and master DNS IP is this. This is reverse zone file. Save the configuration and exit. Now check the named.conf configuration parameters for any syntax error. As we received an error, open the file again. So as you can see, our first line has single forward slash, but comment should be start with double slash. Or you can define comment as this. Now save and test again. Now start your named services. Enable firewall rule for DNS. Verify the /etc/resolve.conf file for name server entries. This time I'm not shut down this machine. Let's configure our third machine, which will be act as client. Start client machine. Check the IP address. As it is showing IP address 10.0.2.9, but we have to configure it as 10.0.2.100. So just log in to this machine via SSH. First set the hostname for this machine. Check the bind utils package if it is installed or not. Now make copy of original network configuration file. Now configure network file with static IP address. And static IP configuration is already there, but onboard should be yes. Now restart the network interface. Open SSH connection again. Check the IP address. Check the name server addresses in /etc/resolve.conf file. It is OK. Now start our all three machines and access them via SSH. We are logging from all three machines. First we use NSLOOKUP to make query request. As you can see that our query has been resolved by DNS Server. You can query any machine which we define in our ACL list of named.conf file in DNS Server. The second utility that we can use to resolve query is dig. We use dig to resolve reverse queries. Here you can see that our reverse query is also answered. Question field is this and answer field is this. Try with another one. Last, we can resolve our query with host utility and you will get the answer for your query. So this is the way that you can configure your own DNS server. This is the private DNS server because we limit the users or machines to make queries to our DNS server. If you want to make it public DNS server, then edit your NS1 or NS2 server machines at c/namd.conf file.